Alicia Turner was strangled in a dark, padlocked warehouse while the family that paid for her death sat home waiting for a billionaire's heart to stop. After 3 years of nursing a man his own blood had discarded, Alicia was marked for death the moment a secret clause in a new will was leaked. The family spent $50,000 to erase the obstacle to their fortune, but they committed one fatal oversight. They thought they had buried the truth with her body. But how did a single text message sent 7 minutes before she left the house turn their perfect crime into a life sentence? Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us until the end, and if this mystery moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and pass it along to a friend. The screen flickered with the grainy, high-contrast light of a backyard security feed, the kind of footage that usually captures nothing more than a stray cat or the swaying of oak branches in a Virginia breeze. It was the 14th of March 2024, in the quiet, tree-lined enclave of Maplewood. If you were just scrolling past the raw files, you'd miss the weight of what happened at exactly 6:34 p.m. You see an elderly man, William Hargrove, sitting in a specialized wheelchair on a stone patio that looks out over a manicured lawn. His hair is a shock of white, catching the last of the golden hour light. Then, Alicia Turner walks into the frame. She's 35, wearing navy scrubs that have seen a long shift, but she moves toward him with a grace that isn't taught in nursing school. She doesn't just check his vitals or offer a professional nod. She bends down, the fabric of her scrubs rustling, and places her hand firmly on the cold metal armrest of his chair. Then she kisses him. This wasn't some sanitized clinical peck. It was a real, lingering kiss, 4 seconds of absolute, undeniable truth. As she pulls back, you can see William's hand reach up, his fingers trembling slightly as he brushes her cheek. It was a moment of pure humanity captured by emotion-activated lens. She straightens his blanket, grips the handles of the chair, and pushes him back toward the house. By 6:35 p.m., the patio is empty again. No one watching that feed in real time could have known they were looking at the last 31 seconds of Alicia Turner's freedom. This footage wouldn't just be a memory. 6 months later, it would be the prosecution's strongest weapon, played on a loop for a jury to prove that this wasn't a case of a caregiver grooming a patient, but 2 people who had found a miracle in the middle of a tragedy. To understand how that kiss became a death warrant, you have to look at the 3 years of cold, calculated abandonment that came before it. William Hargrove had been a titan in Maplewood, a man who built a property management empire with his own 2 hands. But on the 12th of September 2021, a pickup truck ignored a red light and T-boned William's car at 50 miles per hour. He survived, but the physics of the crash shattered his vertebrae, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down, permanently. In the first month, his family was a constant presence, playing the role of the grieving, supportive clan for the benefit of the hospital staff. But as the reality of a long-term disability set in, the visits evaporated. His son Bradley, 54 and already eyeing the business, visited twice in that first year. His daughter Christine visited once. His grandson Tyler, 29, and full of a military bravado he didn't earn, never showed up at all. William spent his 80th birthday in a house that felt like a museum of his former life, staring at a telephone that refused to ring. Investigators later found a journal entry from November 2021 that would make your heart ache. He wrote, "My family vanished the moment I became a burden. I was only valuable when I could write checks." That was the man Alicia Turner met on the 14th of December 2021. Alicia wasn't just another hire. She was a woman who knew the weight of a slow goodbye. She had dropped out of nursing school to care for her own mother through stage 4 cancer. When her mother died, Alicia didn't go back to finish her degree. She became a certified home health aide, choosing to stay in the trenches of caregiving. When she walked into William's house for the first time, he was sitting by the window, his eyes hollow. He didn't even acknowledge her. Most caregivers would have checked the chart and started the vitals, but Alicia did something different. She adjusted her scrubs, sat down in his line of sight, and asked, "Mr. Hargrove, what's your favorite meal?" The one you'd make if you could stand in a kitchen again? That one question broke the ice. William turned his head, his voice raspy from disuse, and said, "Homemade lasagna. My late wife's recipe." 2 days later, Alicia brought in grocery bags that smelled of fresh basil and garlic. She cleared the kitchen island and set everything at counter height so William could reach from his wheelchair. They spent 3 hours layering pasta and cheese, the steam filling the kitchen, and when they finally sat down to eat, the billionaire, who had everything, started to cry. The community in Maplewood started to notice the change. Neighbors saw Alicia taking William to the park, not just pushing him along, but stopping to point out birds, reading poetry to him under the oaks, and bringing along a portable record player to blast Miles Davis. She made him feel like a person again, not a medical case file. In a local coffee shop, the gossip was that the hired help was getting too close. But William didn't care. He was laughing again. By June 2022, he asked her, "Why waste your time with a broken old man?" Alicia looked him in the eye and said, "You're not broken. You're just waiting for someone to remind you that you're still here." That was the day William realized he was in love. It took another year for the secret to come out. Alicia had noticed the way William's face lit up when she entered the room, and she realized the feeling was mutual. On the 8th of September 2023, William finally said it. "I'm in love with you. Not because you take care of me, but because of who you are." Alicia didn't say anything at first. She just left for the night, leaving William in a state of absolute terror. But the next morning she walked in, dropped her bags, and knelt by his chair. "I don't care that you're 82, she told him. "I love you too." They were a couple from that day forward, though they kept it hidden, knowing the vultures in his family would never understand a bond that wasn't built on a balance sheet. The curiosity loop for the family began on the 18th of January 2024, when Bradley Hargrove showed up unannounced. He hadn't called in 8 months, but he needed money, and he'd been asking his accountant about his early inheritance. When he walked in and saw his father and the caregiver holding hands, laughing over a shared joke, his face went purple. "She's taking advantage of you!" he screamed. William didn't flinch. He looked at his son, the man who had ignored his own father's birthdays, and told him to get out. That evening, Bradley called an emergency meeting with Christine and Tyler. They tried everything. They hired a private investigator, hoping to find a criminal record or a history of elder abuse, but the PI found nothing. Alicia was a saint. They tried to have William declared mentally incompetent, but a lawyer reviewed his records and told them he was as sharp as a razor. Desperate, the family's fury boiled over when William called his attorney, Richard Thornton. On the 5th of March 2024, he was changing his will. Bradley and Christine, who were supposed to get $1.5 million each, were slashed down to a mere $200,000. Alicia Turner was now the primary heir, set to receive $2.5 million, the house, and every other asset. William even included a clause that acted like a poison pill. If any family member committed a crime against Alicia, they would get nothing, and the money would go to charity. But William made one fatal mistake. He didn't know his attorney's assistant, Karen Ross, was Christine's best friend. By March 8th, the family knew exactly what was on the line. Bradley, Christine, and Tyler met in Bradley's living room, the air thick with desperation. "We need to challenge it," Christine argued, but they knew a legal fight would take years and they'd likely lose. Bradley's voice dropped, barely a whisper. "If something happens to Alicia before Dad dies, the bequest is invalid. The money reverts to us." There was a long, terrifying silence in that room. They weren't just a family anymore. They were a cartel. Tyler mentioned he had military connections, men who didn't ask questions if the price was right. They hired Vincent Cross, an ex-Marine with a dishonorable discharge, for $50,000. Bradley began withdrawing the cash in chunks of $25,000. For 3 days, Vincent and his partner, Ramon Silva, sat in a white van 3 blocks away, watching Alicia's every move through binoculars. They knew her green Honda, they knew her grocery stops, and they knew her smile. On the morning of March 14th, while Alicia was playfully failing to flip a pancake for William, Tyler sent the text that sealed her fate. "Today, go." As the sun began to set over that stone patio, Alicia leaned down for that final 4-second kiss. completely unaware that she had exactly 13 minutes of freedom left before the white van pulled up behind her. The green Honda Civic pulled out of Williams' driveway at exactly 6:47 p.m., its headlights cutting through the growing Virginia dusk. Inside, Alicia was likely humming along to the radio, perhaps still feeling the warmth of that final kiss on the patio. She had a week off ahead of her, a precious window of time she planned to spend preparing for a future she thought was secure. She didn't notice the white van that pulled away from the curb 3 blocks down, its engine a low, predatory hum as it slotted into the traffic behind her. Vincent Cross and Ramon Silva had spent 72 hours studying her life. They knew her turns, her braking patterns, and most importantly, her destination. Alicia pulled into the parking lot of a local grocery store at 6:58 p.m. It was a routine stop, the kind of mundane errand that punctuates the end of a long workday. She chose a spot near the back of the lot, away from the crowded entrance where the light was better and the foot traffic was heavy. She wanted a quick exit, but she had unknowingly chosen a kill zone. As she popped her trunk and reached for her reusable shopping bags, the white van screeched to a halt directly behind her, blocking her in. The abduction was surgical. Vincent, a man who stood 6'2" and weighed over 200 pounds, was out of the van before Alicia could even process the shadow looming over her. She screamed a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the evening air and fought with a desperation that surprised her attackers. But against a former Marine trained in hand-to-hand combat, her 5'7" frame stood no chance. Ramon moved with practiced speed, snapping industrial zip ties around her wrists and shoving a gloved hand over her mouth to stifle the noise. In exactly 30 seconds, Alicia Turner was gone. Her purse lay in the oil-stained asphalt, her groceries were never bought, and her trunk remained open like a gaping wound. A store employee heard the struggle and saw the van speeding away, but in the bustle of a Thursday night, the event was dismissed as a minor disturbance or a reckless driver. It wasn't until 7:44 p.m. that security finally noticed the abandoned Honda and called the police. By then, Alicia had been missing for 46 minutes, and she was already being carried into Riverside Warehouse Unit 4B. The warehouse was a cavernous, rotting structure on the edge of town, a relic of Bradley Hargrove's property management empire that had sat vacant for 3 years. It was the perfect place for a ghost. Vincent and Ramon carried her to a small back room, a windowless box with a single reinforced door that Bradley had provided the keys for. They dropped her onto the concrete floor, her navy scrubs gathering dust from the industrial floor. What happened next was a detail that would later make the lead detective's blood run cold. Vincent didn't kill her immediately. He knelt beside her and, with a calm, businesslike tone, told her exactly why she was there. He explained that Williams' family had paid them $50,000 to make her disappear because she was an obstacle to a $2.5 million inheritance. He wanted her to know the price of her compassion. At approximately 7:45 p.m., while the first police cruisers were arriving at the grocery store parking lot, Vincent Cross placed his hands around Alicia's neck. She fought until the very end, her boots scraping against the concrete. But the struggle lasted only 3 minutes. They left her body in that dark room, snapped a padlock onto the door, and drove away to collect the rest of their blood money. 2 hours later, Tyler Hargrove met the killers at a desolate rest stop, 40 miles outside of town. He handed over a duffel bag containing $25,000 in cash, the final installment for a life extinguished. "Is it done?" Tyler asked. Vincent nodded, and with that, the conspiracy went home to sleep. Tyler arrived at his house at 10:17 p.m., told his wife he'd had a late business dinner, and went to bed without a flicker of remorse. Back in Maplewood, the nightmare was just beginning for William Hargrove, when a detective arrived at 9:30 p.m. to inform him that Alicia's car had been found abandoned with signs of a struggle. The elderly man's world imploded. Through his grief, he pointed the finger exactly where it belonged. He told the police about the inheritance, the hostility from his children, and the threats Bradley had made. The following morning, Bradley, Christine, and Tyler were brought into the station for questioning. They were a picture of rehearsed innocence. Bradley claimed he was home with his wife, Christine had coworkers who placed her at her office until 8 p.m. Tyler produced a receipt for a business dinner. They had alibis, they had lawyers, and for 11 days, it seemed they had a victory. While the entire city searched the woods and the river for Alicia, her family sat in their comfortable homes, waiting for their father to die so they could claim their prize. The silence broke on March 25th at 6:47 a.m. with an anonymous, distorted call to the police department. Riverside Warehouse Unit 4B, the voice said, "There's a body." When detectives arrived and cut the lock on the back room, the smell of 3 years of decay was replaced by something far worse. Alicia Turner was found exactly where she had been left, still wearing the navy scrubs from 11 days ago, her hands still bound by the zip ties that had sealed her fate. The curiosity loop that finally broke the family wasn't a witness or a confession, it was the land itself. When investigators ran the property records for the warehouse, they found it belonged to Hargrove Property Management. Bradley Hargrove had used his own company's assets to hide his father's lover's corpse. With that link established, the digital facade crumbled. Warrants were issued, and bank records showed Bradley's cash withdrawals matching the dates of the hit. But the most damning evidence was a deleted text on Tyler's phone from 6:42 p.m. on the night of the murder. It was sent to Vincent Cross and contained only a license plate number and 4 words: "Target leaving now." The perfect crime was exposed, and the family that killed for money was about to discover exactly what that money had bought them. The trial of the Hargrove family began on the 9th of September 2024, and it quickly became the most scrutinized legal battle in the history of Maplewood. The prosecution didn't just present a case of murder. They presented a Shakespearean tragedy, fueled by the purest form of greed. They laid out the phone records, the bank statements showing Bradley's calculated cash withdrawals, and the forensic DNA pulled from the white rental van. But the moment that truly broke the defense was when the courtroom lights dimmed, and the jury watched those 31 seconds of security footage. Seeing Alicia bend down to kiss William on that stone patio stripped away the family's narrative that she was a manipulative predator. The jury didn't see a gold digger. They saw a woman who loved a man the rest of the world had forgotten. On the 12th day of the trial, the front of the United Family Front finally cracked. Tyler Hargrove, facing the prospect of life without parole, accepted a plea deal to testify against his own father and aunt. From the witness stand, he delivered the play-by-play of a cold-blooded execution. He admitted that the plan had been in motion since March 8th, born from the moment they realized the will had been changed. He detailed how Bradley had insisted that eliminating Alicia was the only way to save their inheritance. Tyler described the rest stop meeting, the exchange of the duffel bag, and the chilling confirmation from Vincent Cross that Alicia was gone. The jury took only 4 hours to reach a verdict, guilty on all counts for every defendant. On the 14th of October 2024, the sentencing was handed down like a hammer. Bradley, the architect of the hit, received life without parole. Vincent and Ramon, the hands that carried it out, received the same. Christine was sentenced to 25 years for her role in the conspiracy. Even Tyler, despite his cooperation, was given life with a minimum of 30 years before he could even dream of a parole board. But the true emotional punch of this story didn't happen in the courtroom. It happened in the quiet, sterile room of a hospice center on the very same day the sentences were read. William Hargrove, whose health had plummeted the moment Alicia vanished, was drawing his final breaths. He had stopped eating and talking weeks earlier, retreating into a world of silence that no doctor could penetrate. According to his nurse, he spoke only one sentence before his heart finally gave out. "I waited 82 years to find love, and my son took it away in 31 seconds. Then came the final twist, a piece of poetic justice that no one saw coming. Because Alicia had predeceased William, her share of the estate was technically void under standard probate law. Bradley, Christine, and Tyler had believed that by killing her, the money would automatically revert to them. They were wrong. Because they were convicted of crimes against Alicia, the charity clause William had inserted into the will was activated. The entire $3.2 million estate, the money they had lied, conspired, and murdered for, was wiped away from their names instantly. Every cent was donated to charity. The family that saw Alicia Turner as a threat to their bank account ended up with absolutely nothing but a life behind bars. They traded a human life for a fortune they would never touch. But the case left a terrifying question hanging in the air. During his interrogation, Vincent Cross had looked directly into the camera and smiled when asked if he'd done this kind of work before. "You'd be surprised," he said, "how often families kill for inheritance." Alicia Turner followed every protocol and showed a level of compassion that most people only talk about. Yet she became a target simply because she cared for someone no one else wanted. Her legacy isn't just a story of a murder. It's a warning to every healthcare worker and caregiver who steps into the middle of a broken family. William and Alicia deserved a sunset together on that stone patio, but instead, they became a statistic of what happens when greed is thicker than blood. As the warehouse Unit 4B remains empty and the Hargrove estate is liquidated for the public good, the image that remains is those 31 seconds, a final kiss that was worth more than every dollar the family ever stole. If this story of greed and the ultimate poetic justice ending shocked you, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the dark side of inheritance. Who do you think was the true villain of this case, the son who planned it, or the attorney's assistant who leaked the secret? Sound off in the comments. Disclaimer: this program is for entertainment purposes only. While based on the documented case of Alicia Turner and the Hargrove family, certain narrative elements and dialogue have been dramatized for storytelling impact. This production is intended to highlight forensic history and is not a legal or official record of the case.